What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again with the Awesemo Fantasy channel, talking some NFL draft prospects out of the 2022 NFL draft. We've done receivers, we've done running backs, and today we are going to kick off QBs with Pittsburgh's Kenny Pickett. Before we get started, make sure to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all other content goes live. We're also brought to you today by Underdog Fantasy. And if you haven't heard of Underdog Fantasy, they have all sorts of contests available to you. They have best ball, they have live drafts, they have pick'em contests, and you can make up to 10 extra entry fee. If you use the promo code Awesemo, you are going to get a match deposit bonus up to $100. So make sure to check out Underdog Fantasy today. And diving into today's prospect, it is Kenny Pickett coming out of Pittsburgh, our first QB prospect overall. So this is going to require a little bit of nuance when discussing Pickett. Overall, he is a very old player coming out of Pittsburgh. The guy is already 23.9 years old. He actually had his first season in 2017. So Kenny Pickett, he's an interesting evaluation. What we like to see here is growth at the position. We'll get into him statistically, but at the combine, he did check a lot of boxes. He's big, 6'3", 217 pounds. He's got good athleticism, 4.73 40-yard dash. We saw that on display in a lot of his rushing numbers, which we'll get to. But perhaps the biggest concern here was hand size. He had sub 9-inch hands, 8.5 inches, and there's a little bit of, I don't want to call it speculation, but worry here. He has a double joint on one of his thumbs, which kind of warps the size of the hand overall, but a lot of people are concerned about this. Overall, Pickett, what we really like about him is the progression he showed through his career. Diving into some of the stats, he had his best year in 2021, and this was significantly better than really any other season he's played. Nearly 500 attempts. He's completing 67% of them. 8.7 yards per attempt is very healthy for him as well. But the counting stats are just ridiculous for Pickett this last year in the ACC. Over 4,300 yards, 42 touchdowns to just 7 interceptions. And this guy was performing against some of the better competition in the conference. You look at some of the better teams he faced, he's over 300 yards plenty of times this year, but just a few teams that included in these numbers were Western Michigan, New Hampshire, Georgia Tech, Clemson, one of the more notable ones. He passed for 519 yards against Miami, over 400 yards against Duke, 350 yards against North Carolina, 340 against Virginia. This guy was doing it all in the ACC. Now, some of the concerns with Pickett, this happened later in his career. Those are 2021 numbers. Again, he first stepped on the field in 2017, and then he's there for 6 years with the COVID year. In 2020, he just had a 61% completion percentage, 7.3 yards per attempt, 13 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. He did sprain his ankle towards the end of that year and miss a lot of games, significantly hurt his rushing ability. And that's something we're going to talk about as a concern with Pickett. He's a player that does have some trauma in his past. The Pitt offensive line was phenomenal this last year, but in years prior, this is a guy that took a ton of sacks, and it's really affected his decision-making. If he's in the pocket too long, he'll look to run. He'll look to get rid of the ball. And this past year, a couple times, he would look to get rid of the ball too early, realize his offensive line was actually doing the job, and then have to go back to his reads. Now, from an advanced metrics perspective, a dot of 9.7, that's okay. It's fifth in this class. Average time to throw was 3.2 seconds. That's the second longest. It's only longer than Malik Willis. He's taking a long time to read the field. That was a knock on Justin Fields last year. And it's going to be a knock on the NFL where all these teams are moving faster. The game is just going to be faster. He's not going to have that same time to throw. Drop rate was actually number 1 in this class. So even though he had Jordan Addison, Blitnikoff, winner, his receivers weren't always doing him the most favors. A lot of production left on the table with a 9% drop rate. He was pretty good at not taking pressure this year. I think a lot of that because of the trauma. His pressure to sack rate, 19.3%. That was 7th in the class. Pretty good there. And he doesn't turn the ball over a lot. 2.8% of his throws were turnover-worthy plays per Pro Football Focus. That was ahead of a lot of players in this class. It was ahead of Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder, Strong, and Corral. Now, looking at him moving forward, he's a tough evaluation. You're going to see a lot of people compare him to Joe Burrow, and that is more or less due to the late career ascendance. With Burrow, it was because of the transfer, and he played at 2 elite programs with Kenny Pickett and Pitt. He's stationary the whole time, but we did see the growth with him. However, with Kenny Pickett, and I'll bring you back to the size and athleticism, there are a few players that are pretty good in terms of comparisons. The number one comparison to Pickett in my model was Derek Carr. And this is an interesting comparison overall because Derek Carr had good athleticism. He ran a 4.69 40-yard dash. Derek Carr has smallish hands. It's not 8.5 inches, but 9 1/8. They're similar in size. Derek Carr was 6'2", 214. Kenny Pickett 6'3", 217. And then overall, these stats were similar for Derek Carr coming out of Fresno State too. Kenny Pickett and Derek Carr, very similar yards per attempt. A couple other players in this range. We had Ryan Tannehill, who had 9-inch hands. He was 6'4", 221, the 4.7 40-yard dash, similar college stats. Kirk Cousins is in this cohort. He's a little further down the list. He's bigger. He has bigger hands, and he's a little less athletic with better passing production. But you kind of see the players where Kenny Pickett is closely comparing. It is your starter caliber athletes in the NFL, but most of them are not your Pro Bowl, Super Bowl winning athletes. Again, top three were Derek Carr, Ryan Tannehill, and Kirk Cousins. Players that have started in this league for a long time, but all players who have been unable to get over the hump. When we look at terms of fit, it's a weak quarterback class, and there's plenty of teams at the top that could use QBs. Carolina, Detroit, Atlanta. I think the question is, do one of those teams take a shot, or does Kenny Pickett fall a little later to teams like New Orleans, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh that could potentially use a quarterback in the future? Complete wild card position. For me, I think one of the better fits would be maybe a Pittsburgh later in the first round, not a top 10 pick in my opinion. Let me know where you see Kenny Pickett coming off the board and to what team. I am Matt Gajewski on Twitter at Matt_Gajewski. Thank you for watching, and we will see you again next time.